Well, after the mad flurry of the past couple of weeks, the reporting season ended this week, with investors left scratching their heads about what it all meant. So just what did happen and what broad investment themes emerged? I sought the opinion of the Chief Equity Strategist at UBS, David Cassidy. Well, David, how do you reflect on the profit season? Was it better or worse than you expected?
I think it was broadly in line with what we were expecting, Alan. We did see analyst numbers come down a little bit, but the market, I think, was expecting that, and we did see the market rally through the course of the month by about 2%. So I think certainly no worse than feared.
But there were some big differences between sectors, weren't there?
Oh, absolutely. I think what was most stark was the dichotomy between the resource sector and the rest of the market. We saw the resource sector generate earnings growth of around about 60% year on year, whereas the market, excluding resources, only saw earnings growth of around about 2%.
And within that 2%, were there some sectors going backwards?
Oh, absolutely. I think if you look at excluding the banks, you're talking about negative earnings growth year on year.
So the industrials, excluding the banks, went backwards?
Absolutely, yep.
So why was that? I mean, what's the theme that emerges from that?
Well, I think what you're seeing there is basically a couple of pretty important macro factors that are keeping a lid on profitability. I think the domestic economy over the past 6 months has been softer than expected and softer than trend. And at the same time, you've had a very strong currency. So both the domestic earners and foreign currency earners outside of the resource sector, things have been pretty tough.
But given the huge disparity between resources and industrials, is it valid to even talk about the market as a whole at the moment?
Well, I think what you would need to assume is we see some improvement in domestic economic conditions, and that's our expectation, and also at least a stabilisation of the currency. If we see those two factors, I think you can start to talk about a market that looks to be on the cheap side of fair value.
So can you explain how you conclude that?
Well, if you look at the